So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to set y equal to kx, where k is a constant. So now I'm going to rewrite the equation with y equaling to kx. So this would give us x to the power of kx equals kx to the power of x. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root on both sides. And this is the same thing as taking the power of 1/2 on both sides. So this is the same thing as x to the power of kx to the power of 1/2. This is equal to k to the power, kx to the power of x to the power of 1/2. Now, if we have something like a to the power of x to the power of y, this is the same thing as a to the power of x times y. So we have x to the power of k of x to the power of 1/2. This is the same thing as x to the power of kx times 1/2, which is the same thing as x to the power of k of x over 2. And this is equal to kx to the power of x times 1/2, which is x over 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides to the power of 2 over x. So I'm going to take the power of 2 over x on both sides. And that means that we multiply 2 over x to both exponents. Now for this, these two would cancel out and these x's would cancel out. So on our left-hand side, we would be left with x to the power of k. And now on our right-hand side, our 2's here, these would cancel out, and so would our x's. So we would just have k to the power of x to the power of 1, which is simply just k to the power of x. So now we have x to the power of k equals k times x. And now we're going to divide both sides by x. So by doing that, these two cancel. So on this side, we would just have k equals x to the power of k over x. Now, if we have a over m over a over n, so for dividing exponents, this is the same thing as a to the power of m minus n. So right here we have x to the power of k over x to the power of 1. This is actually a 1 equals k. So this is the same thing as x to the power of k minus 1. And this is still equal to k. Now I'm gonna take the power of 1 over k minus 1 on both sides. So by doing that, this would cancel out. And over here, we'd have 1 over k minus 1. So now this would be x equals k to the power of 1 over k minus 1. So now we have our value of x. X is equal to k to the power of 1 over k minus 1. So now we need to find our value of y. Well, we know that y equals kx, right? So this means that if y equals kx, this would mean that y would equal k times x, and we already know our value of x, which is k to the power of 1 over k minus 1. Now, if we want to multiply these two numbers, we would have to add their exponents. So k over here, this is to the power of 1. So 1 plus 1 over k minus 1. And this is actually equal to k to the power of k over k minus 1. I just saved a little time because it's actually really simple to do, just 1 plus 1 over k minus 1. So now we know that y equals k to the power of k over k minus 1. So now, let's say that k is equal to 3. Because it's a constant, so we could set it to whatever we want. Then x here, x would equal, we're replacing k with 3, so 3 to the power of 1 over 3 minus 1, which is 2, and 3 to the power of 1/2 is the same thing as the square root of 3. So we know that x is the square root of 3. So now if we substitute 3 in for the equation for y, we get y equals 3 to the power of 3 over 3 minus 1 is 2. Now, this is the same thing as 3 to the power of 3 times 1/2. And this is the same thing as the square root of 3 to the power of 3. So now, as you can see, we have our values for x and y. And now all we need to do is check if they're correct by plugging them into our equation here. So we have x to the power of y equals y to the power of x. So x, as we already know, is the square root of 3. So x to the power of y, well, y is the square root of 3 to the power of 3. So the square root of 3 to the power of 3. And this is equal to y is the square root of 3 to the power of 3. and x is the square root of 3. So now, the square root of 3 to the power of the square root of 3 to the power of 3 equals the square root of 3 to the power of 3 times the square root of 3. Now, the square root of 3 to the power of 3, well, this is the same thing as square root of 3 to the power of 3 to the power of 1/2 times 3. And this is equal to the square root of 3 to the power of 3 times 3 to the power of 1/2. Now, on the right-hand side, we're going to end up with the square root of 3 to the power of 3 and 1, because this is 1. When we're multiplying exponents, we add our exponents, right? So 1 plus 1/2 is 3/2. Now, on our left-hand side, we have the square root of 3 to the power of 3. 1/2 times 3 is 3/2. And now, as you can see, both of these are the same. The square root of 3 to the power of 3 to the power of 3/2. Meaning our values for x and y are true. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to solve the equation x to the power of 4 minus 16 is equal to 0. So, my only variable in this equation is x, so that's the variable I'm going to be solving for. And now for my solution. What I'm first going to do is rewrite x to the power of 4 as x to the power of 2 times 2. So now I have x to the power of 2 times 2 minus 16 is equal to 0. Now from here, if I have something in the form a to the power of m times n, this is equal to a to the power of m to the power of n. So x to the power of 2 times 2 is equal to x to the power of 2 to the power of 2. And I have this minus 16 is equal to 0. Now from here, I'm going to rewrite 16 as 4 squared. So now I have x to the power of 2 to the power of 2 minus 4 squared is equal to 0. And if I have something in the form a squared minus b squared, this is equal to a plus b times a minus b. So in this case, a is x squared and b is 4. So this turns into x squared plus 4 times x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. Now I can divide this into two equations. I have x squared plus 4 is equal to 0, and x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. So for x squared plus 4 equals 0, I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. So I get x squared is equal to negative 4. And now I'm going to take the square root on both sides. The square root of x squared is simply x. So I get x equals the square root of negative 4. Now the square root of negative 4 is the same thing as the square root of 4 times the square root of negative 1. And the square root of negative 1 is equal to I, so I get x is equal to 2i, and this is positive or negative. Now for x squared minus 4 equals 0, I'm going to simply add 4 on both sides. So I get x squared is equal to positive 4. And now if I take the square root, I get x is equal to positive or negative 2. So my four solutions are x equals 2i, x equals negative 2i, x equals 2, and x equals negative 2.